Welcome. Reading Goodnight Stories with Bored Grandma. Hello, grandchildren. It's your grandma here. Do you have your teeth brushed? Are you ready for bed? If so, then here we go. Tonight I'm going to read to you My Big Book of Fairy Tales by Peter Stevenson. Retold by Louisa Somerville. Illustrated by Peter Stevenson. Hansel and Gretel. Long ago there were two children, a boy named Hansel and a girl named Gretel. They lived with their father, who was a woodcutter, in a little cottage on the edge of a deep wood. They were very poor. Although their mother had died, their father loved them and took good care of them. Hansel and Gretel were happy to spend all day long playing outside the cottage. Then one day, their father married again. "Come, children, meet your new stepmother," the woodcutter said. Hansel and Gretel didn't like the look of her one little bit. Their father was so in love with his new wife that he was unaware she was really a witch. Muttered the woman. "We have very little food to eat. I will put a spell on my husband to make him take the children into the woods and leave them there. Then at least we won't starve." Soon the children and their father set off into the woods. Sure enough, their father left them behind. But Hansel guessed what his stepmother had planned and dropped white pebbles along their path. "We'll follow the trail of pebbles all the way home," said Gretel. The next day, the children were led into the woods again. This time, Hansel grabbed a loaf of bread as he left the house. In the woods, he secretly left a trail of breadcrumbs behind. Soon he and Gretel were lost once again. "Don't worry," said Hansel. "The bread trail will get us home." But there was not a crumb in sight. "Oh no," cried Gretel. "The birds have eaten them all. Now we'll never find our way home." "Don't give up so soon," said Hansel to his sister. They walked and walked until at last they came to a clearing in the forest. "Oh, look!" Gretel shouted excitedly. "A house made of candy!" cried Hansel. The children were so hungry that they rushed up to the candy cottage and started to break off pieces to eat. "Delicious!" shouted Gretel, cramming her mouth with cake. "Scrumptious!" agreed Hansel as he ate a candy cane. The children were so busy eating that they didn't notice a witch who was watching them. Suddenly, the witch jumped out of the cottage and grabbed them. "How dare you eat my house?" she chuckled. Before the children could explain, the witch pushed Hansel into a cage in the garden. Then she made Gretel cook meals and clean the house. She kept Hansel in the cage and gave him good things to eat. "When you are fatter, I am going to eat you," she said with a grin, and poked him with a pointed fork. Gretel watched her brother helplessly. How could she set him free? But Hansel had his own plan. Every day, the witch checked to see if he was fat enough to eat. "Hansel, put out your finger," the witch would say. Luckily for Hansel, she could not see very well. In fact, she couldn't see farther than her nose. Whenever she leaned into the cage, Hansel would hold out an old chicken bone for her to feel. "No, still too bony," the witch would mutter to herself, thinking it was his finger. "Woo!" said Hansel when the witch had gone. "She still doesn't suspect a thing." The witch couldn't understand why Hansel didn't seem to be getting any fatter. "Ready or not, I'm going to eat you tomorrow, little boy," she chuckled. The next day, she said to Gretel, "Light the oven, little girl, so that I can cook your brother for supper." "Yes, ma'am," was all that Gretel could stutter. Now it was Gretel's turn to think of a plan. Gretel did as she was told, as slowly as possible. She could not bear the thought of what was about to happen to her brother, but soon the witch became impatient. "Climb in and see if it's hot enough," she told Gretel. But Gretel was smart. She went up to the oven and pretended to get her head stuck in the door. "I can't seem to get in," she said. "My head is much too big. Can you show me how, please?" "What nonsense!" screamed the witch. "A little girl's head will fit inside an oven perfectly well. Look, even I can fit my head inside." She pushed Gretel aside and leaned over to look inside the oven. With all her might, Gretel quickly pushed the witch into the oven and slammed the door shut with a great big bang. Then she fastened the bolt. "Got you, you horrid old witch!" yelled Gretel. How the witch howled! Gretel didn't want to listen. She ran out into the garden. It didn't take Gretel long to find the key to the iron cage. She opened the door and let her brother out. "We're free at last!" shouted the children, hugging each other and dancing around the garden. Together, they explored the witch's house. In her bedroom, they found a trunk full of gold, silver, necklaces, and jewels, and there was more jewelry hidden under the witch's quilt. Just then, there was a noise at the door. The children rushed downstairs and were overjoyed to see their father there. "Hansel, Gretel!" he cried, clasping the children to him. "Father!" they cried. "Look what we found! We're rich!" "Oh my!" he explained, amazed at the treasure. "But how did you find us?" asked Hansel. Their father explained that the witch was really their wicked stepmother who had deserted him. The moment that Gretel had pushed her into the oven, the spell on him had been broken, and he had gone looking for the children in the forest. Hansel, Gretel, and their father filled their pockets full of treasure. Then they returned to their little tumble-down cottage at the edge of the forest. They had enough money now for their father to repair the cottage and make it warm and cozy, and to buy himself a shiny new car. "Now let's have a party," he cried. So he drove into town and bought all sorts of good things to eat, and they had a wonderful party. "We'll never be poor or hungry again," said Father. "No, never," the children replied, and they all lived happily ever after. And as for the wicked witch, she was not dead after all, but she flew away on her broomstick and was never seen again. The end. Now off to dreamland you go.
3, 2, 1.